All right, welcome into the show. Welcome into Talk the Plank. I have a very special guest today. He has recorded with us before in the past, but unfortunately, the previous service that I was using, they messed our stuff all up. I'm very upset about it. It was a great episode. It was episode 3. But welcome back into the show, Josh Queipo of Pewter Report. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excellent, man. I have thoroughly slept for the past couple of days, getting over this loss.
I was going to say, sleeping off the loss.
Yeah, man. It was rough. It was rough. I feel like I've said it like maybe 30, 40 times this year already, but I'm just like, that was the worst loss that I've ever seen the Bucs take.
I mean, it was definitely reminiscent of like home against New Orleans 2020, right?
Mm.
Where, I mean, the offense couldn't do anything. The defense was a sieve. Felt very reminiscent of that. And then the other one that comes to my mind,
That Falcons game.
Yeah.
Falcons game. that or that Carolina game where Jameis just decided he wanted to throw like 10 interceptions that game.
It could be, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, if you're a Bucs fan, there's quite a few to potentially choose from, and you can't go too far back before you go.
Pick your bad quarterback.
Right, exactly. So, although I will say that Brady did not play well in San Francisco, but
he was a bad quarterback on Sunday. That's for damn sure.
That was a bad game for him. I know there are a lot of people out there who believe that I am a Brady defender, and to a certain degree I am, because I do actually believe that he's played well this season, but you can't defend Sunday's performance. That really, there was, outside of like Carl Nassib, not many players that played very well in San Francisco.
Right. It was ironic. It was like the guys you would least expect are the ones that are best rated right now from that game, like Carl Nassib, Anthony Nelson, who had an interception taken away over some bullshit. That is one of the worst calls I've ever seen. The dude was falling down.
Yeah.
How do you call that holding?
Yeah, there's nothing good from Sunday. I was telling you, before we started recording, like I have purposely found other things in my life that I needed to address just so I don't have to go back and watch that tape. Right. Although tomorrow night will be when I finally decide to take a look at it from the all 22 angles and just shake my head.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I salute you for trying to do. I tried to do it today on my lunch break. I told you, I said on my lunch break I'm gonna watch the game, and I took tons of notes and nothing is good. It's like, I think the Bucs' first drive was the only one that was actually somewhat decent.
Yeah.
Until Ryan Suckup decided, oh, maybe I'm not a Pro Bowler.
Well,
I mean, it's out of his range. It's out of his range.
Yeah. I think he was put in a bad situation there.
And it started so well because, like, I mean, I understand, like, yes, we did run the ball on first down. Yep. That was not exactly, what we want to see. But Rachaad White busts off a 9-yard gain right off the bat. Like, when that happened, I was like, all right, let's go. We got the ball back. I mean, granted, the 49ers did score on that first drive. And part of that is because Vita Vea only lasted 4 plays.
That was part of it. I mean, just the defense in total just broke down. I mean, there were simple things that they just stopped doing. And then from a schematic standpoint, Kyle Shanahan's a genius. And that cast of playmakers that he has, he's putting them in so many different places that it's hard for a defense to properly account for them, right? I think I texted you earlier, if you've got Logan Ryan lining up on Christian McCaffrey outside, you've already lost the matchup, right? Because the athleticism difference between the two is huge at this point in Logan Ryan's career. And then on top of that, that was a pretty simple defensive coverage, if I remember correctly. Like Bowles brought the house, which meant he's got a man up McCaffrey. And if I remember correctly, like McCaffrey got behind him because he stuttered. I think he was looking in the backfield, right? Like he was, trying to like see what was going on there. And McCaffrey just blew right by him. I mean, that's an easy touchdown for
he had the jump
anybody.
on him. And right when you saw McCaffrey lining up out wide, you were just like, all right. I mean, I'm not really that comfortable having Logan Ryan on Christian McCaffrey all the way out there. It was weird that we saw Jamel Dean kicked inside to cover Brandon Ayuk on that play. He was lined up in the slot. And really, it should have been opposite, shouldn't have? Like you would want Logan Ryan inside for that. And you would want Jamel Dean out there on Christian McCaffrey. But
yeah, I think I don't blame necessarily. Like I can understand the thought process because Ayuk one-on-one with Logan Ryan is a matchup nightmare there, and that just goes down to the playmakers that Shanahan has. I mean, that's an elite group because their skill sets are
yards after catch.
They've got a lot of yak. I mean, just the athleticism. All of them can move inside, outside. They're chess pieces for him, and he moves them around and then allows his quarterback to just say, okay, where do I have the biggest mismatch? Let's go there. Right. So even if Ayuk or Ryan had been inside on Ayuk, that's a mismatch, right? Just in man coverage. And that's what it was. It was man coverage because Bowles was trying to bring pressure. Bowles was trying to bring pressure because the Bucs can't get pressure with 4.
Right.
So he's got to bring extra guys in order to try and create that pressure. And I get the thinking against a rookie quarterback, if you can create pressure, you can hopefully create mistakes. It's just a bad game all around. I mean, nobody played well, nobody coached well. And then going back to kind of what you're talking about, that Bucs first drive, the Bucs run on first down too much, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't ever run on first down. I've been clamoring for the ratio, just when you look at it from like a macro standpoint, I'd like to see it around 65% passing on first down. That still means a little over a third of the time you're going to run. Right? I don't want it to be 100% passing. Then you become too predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot of first down runs and then a lot of second down screens and then third down. Now you're asking Tom Brady to be perfect. And that's where I think a lot of Bucs fans end up down on Brady because he's not perfect on third down. No quarterback is. He was.
I expect too much.
It looks that way, right? It ends up looking that way because you're in 3rd and 6 and you're like, okay, they just have to connect, right? I think I've talked about it a little bit. I've written about it a little bit, and I think John Ledyard even tweeted about it earlier today. The Bucs are number 1 in the NFL in third downs per game at 15.3. And that's a philosophical approach. Bowles has talked about it. We want to get to third and manageable. The best offenses out there, they don't want to get to third down at all. Let's just convert new first downs on 1st and 2nd.
Right? Does he not know you're allowed to pick up first downs on 1st and 2nd down?
Well, I mean, he also was concerned Brady was going to throw an interception in the Cleveland game. So that goes to the risk aversion.
One of the many of his worst quotes. One
will go down in infamy. I mean, he's no Bowles. I'm done. I'm done with Bowles.
You can't defend him at this point.
Or not Bowles, but Leftwich. I'm done with Leftwich because, and it's not just that I don't agree with how he calls a game, but for me, it's the way he treats people who ask him questions that are based in analytics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of
we've heard it multiple times, whether it's you or JC or anybody asking him a question. It seems like he won't take ownership for when he's the one at fault. Like, why did you call this play in this situation when the percentages say that Brady's better in this situation?
Yeah, there's a lot of coach speak, right? He thinks he's taking ownership by going up. Well, I've got to call it better. I've got to coach it better. Or they've got to execute it better. When those are just platitudes, but it comes down to like when somebody says, hey, data shows that if you throw on first down, you typically are put in a better spot, right? And I think JC used EPA which is expected points added per play as an example. And for me, like you can say, like Brandon Staley was presented with something like that last year, right? And Staley's got his faults. But he went on this, I would say, very eloquent diatribe about the mentality of running the ball, right? If you can establish a good running game, you wear your opponent down, right? You also give your defense and you give your quarterback and you give your playmakers some time to rest. I mean, it was this whole big thing. And he basically disagreed, or not to a certain extent, he disagreed with, hey, we should pass a lot and all the time. Hey, that's a great answer. Okay. It gives a different school of thought, one that's more morale based and whatnot, as a opposite viewpoint to a very data driven kind of, this is exactly what the numbers say. Leftwich, he comes off extremely smug because he gives answers like, that's a fantasy football question, right? So like I fired off a tweet, I think it was last week, where I said there are a lot of NFL teams that employ entire, analytics departments. And not only that, there's a bunch of analytics departments out in the public sphere, private sphere, an entire industry of people whose their job is simply to analyze the data, to interpret it, and then give that information to people like Byron Leftwich and say, hey, this can help you be a better version of yourself. And every time he answers with something like, that's a fantasy football question, he spits in the face of that entire industry.
And it just shows he has no interest at all
in learning,
making corrective action.
Right. Of learning, of evolving. And that's part of the issue with the Bucs offense is it has not evolved. And defenses have. And that's one of the issues that the Bucs are running into this year. They're stagnant. You hear it in other Green Bay, they on that 2-point play, right? They said, hey, we know when they come out in this particular formation with Godwin in motion that they're going to run this. So we were ready for it. And they stopped the 2-point play to tie the game, right? Baltimore, they were mic'd up, right? Hey, we know their Bucs are going to do this on first down. Let's stop that. We lead them to this. Defenses know what's going on. So you need to adapt and evolve or you're going to die. And that's what's happened to the Bucs offense this year.
And the lack of adjustments, it's like it gets worse every single week. And we've seen this. For instance, we went into the Cleveland game and we had, a week and a half that we could have prepared for that better. Exact situations like, hey, if we're late in the game and we need just 3 points, these are going to be our specific plays we go with, where we're going to get chunk plays. And we didn't see any of that. We saw them lackadaisical to the ball, no clock awareness, no situational awareness, and it carried over just this lack of urgency by the team that I'm seeing week to week. That we saw it in New Orleans, minus the last 2 drives of the game. I was there, and I kept asking. I'm like, when are they going to actually do something? When are they going to pull their heads out of their asses and realize that play is not working? We need to change it up. And still, they just continue to bash their head against the wall and say, oh, no, we're going to try this screen. We're going to try this screen. We're going to run it on first down. We're not going to do any of these adjustments. And finally, in the 49ers game, like I'm going to go back to that first drive. Like we did see a little, and yes, the first drive is going to be a scripted drive.
Sure.
But you see things that do work, especially not Shanahan. I forget the 49ers coach.
DeMeco
Ryan. All right. He is a Bowles disciple, right? So he uses the blitz too. And, third play of the game is first down. And Rachaad White misses a blitz pickup, right? Brady almost gets hit. He underthrows to Mike. It's an incomplete pass. Fine. This is coming off of, first down on very first play of the game for our offense. Rachaad White gets the 9-yard gain. Then Leonard Fournette catches a screen pass for 11 yards. One of the few screen passes that has worked this year with anybody not named Chris Godwin. So on second down, after Brady throws that incompletion, Rashad White carries it again, 6 yards. So now we're getting into a 3rd and 4. That's that 3rd and manageable that they're talking about. And Brady converts to the right side, throws the gauge. So we're seeing consecutive good, positive plays. And then Rashad White makes a correction. He sees, all right, now I know where the blitz is coming from. On the first down, after converting the gauge, he picks up the blitzer, and Brady completes a beautiful ball to O'Keefe for another first down. And then it goes to shit. We see bad play after bad play. Short carry by Leonard Fournette. The Julio Jones gets wide open on that out route, and Brady can't hit him. And Brady, he was under a little bit of pressure, but he still misses the throw, and it's routine, and it's the things that we see week after week that it's just what is going on in the building that we cannot get our hands on this and figure out what kind of adjustment are we going to make.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that you pointed out is the chunk plays, right? And the Bucs offense, there are a couple things that I think are contributing. Every drive has to be like a 15-play drive, right? Because they're not getting a ton of chunk plays. And on top of that, they're not getting a ton of short fields because their defense isn't creating any turnovers, right? And an offense can't sustain that, okay? Very few can. You can't keep going 75, 80, 85 yards every drive. The Julio ball, I'll push back on that one a little bit. Again, I got to go back to the all-22, but I remember it live. I want to say he had to do it from the opposite hash. So throwing to the field that way on that out is actually a more difficult throw than you might think, and it was catchable. Like, I know everybody was like, hey, it wasn't perfect on Julio.
It was off Julio's hands.
Yeah, he got his hands on
but
that.
But he did have to leap out to get it.
Yeah, he had to stretch. He had to stretch, and it was a little low. But it was, again, like you go back to the beginning of the season, we're talking about this group of pass catchers. They're supposed to be elite. Like, come on. I mean, you see receivers every day plucking balls out of the air. You're like, how did he do that? That was
the catch he made in the Saints game.
Yeah, that was fairly mundane. To me, that's more on Julio. And I think I tweeted as much, and I went back and forth with a bunch of people because there is this perception that Brady's got to be perfect on every throw. And the thing is, when you're throwing 50 to 60 times a game, you're going to have some uncatchable, some bad throws. It's going to happen. You're going to have a higher volume of bad throws than the next guy who's only throwing the ball 35 times a game, right? Because you're talking about like almost 40% more throws in a game. So, and again, Brady had a really bad game against San Francisco. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It was probably his worst game of the year. He's probably had 2 to 3 bad games for the entire year. But and this is kind of where I diverge from a lot of people. When you go through the list of things that are wrong with this offense, Tom Brady not being 2020 Tom Brady is way down there. Right.
2021 Brady was the best version of him here, I would argue.
Well,
the one we saw last year,
under
the MVP he should have been MVP.
Under Arians' system, the 2020 version is probably the closer version of what Arians would want out of his quarterback. I'll give you some stats, and it's kind of a preview to something I'm writing for Pewter Report right now. So what's considered deep balls are passes of 20 plus air yards, right? So 20 or more air yards in the air before it gets to the receiver. So
Jameis balls.
Yeah. So glad you brought him up. So 2019, Jameis's only year with Arians, 15.8% of his throws were 20 yards or more, okay, in the air. All right. That is the no risk it, no biscuit, mantra at its extreme, right? 2020, Brady comes in. I'll let you guess. What percentage of his throws do you think were 20 plus air yards?
I'm going to say, if I remember correctly, going back to that year, I would say probably around 11 to 13%.
15.9.
Wow.
He actually outdid Jameis, right? And now listen to where was it? Listen to these stats on it. 13.5 yards per attempt on those throws, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks, almost 40% completion percentage.
And one of those was a Hail Mary, wasn't it?
I could have been. I off the top of my head, it's hard for me to remember, right?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Actually, yeah, so regular and postseason combined, you're talking 15.9% of his throws were 20 air yards or more. He had 45 completions, completed 37.8% of those throws. I'm sorry, the yards per attempt were 12.7. He threw 15 touchdowns of 20 yards or air yards or more. Now, last year, I'll bury that one for a second. This year, it's at 10%. Okay. So he's absolutely not throwing the ball deep nearly as much. And there's a myriad of reasons. Some people will say because he's afraid to.
A lot of it's situational.
Yeah, his line's not giving him the opportunity. His receivers aren't getting open, right? I mean, the average cushion or separation, every single receiver outside of Russell Gage is outside of the top 50 in separation, okay? So these dudes just aren't getting away from their defenders. So, like I said,
Russell's actually getting open because, like, it seems like
average,
he's not. It seems like he's not.
Yeah, no. He finds holes in zones. It's hard to see it because A, he's been out so much, and B, even the games he's playing in, he's not getting a ton of snaps because he's still dealing with the hamstring issue. Right. Like Russell Gage right now, technically, yeah, you would say he's a bust for his contract. That doesn't mean that he can't earn his contract. He's just got to get healthy, and hamstrings are tricky, right? Yeah. And it seems like Bucs receivers suffer from them every single year.
Every single year.
So we talked about 15.9% of his throws in 2020 were considered deep, right? 20 plus air yards. This year, it's down to 10%. Guess what it was last year?
14.
10.9.
Okay, so it's going down.
This year's version is very similar to last year's version. In terms of like the process, the difference is the result, right? So he's just not as effective on those deep balls. Whereas last year, his completion percentage on those passes went up from 2020 to 42%. So he completed 37 of those balls for 1,139 yards, average just a hair under 13 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. This year, the efficiency on it is really way down.
It seems like he floats them, right? Like
there's overthrows, there's underthrows, there's too much juice, there's not enough juice, and that's why, like, I hear people talk about he's cooked. He's not. I
don't think he's cooked. I don't think he's cooked. It's just, it seems like when he does throw the deep ball, that it just hangs up there for too long.
On some of them, that's what's happened. A really good one that a lot of people, it'll probably come to their mind, was the deep one to Evans in the Baltimore game, right? But you go back and you look at the play, yeah, he underthrew it and it floated because he was on the run to his left. If Brady's throwing on the run, you're not going to see zip on the ball because he's not an outer structure quarterback, right? But he had to elude pressure, right? And then he came back to Evans because I want to say he read concept side first, and there was nothing there. The pressure came and he came back, and then, oh, there's Evans. He torched Marlon Humphrey, right? And so Brady's like, okay, let me try and hit on this. But now Evans is way down the field because he was never supposed to be the read to begin with.
Right.
And now you've got Brady literally running to his non-throwing side, non-throwing hand side or throwing arm side and putting the ball up there. Yeah, that's going to be floated. His mechanics are less consistent this year. Part of that is
wait, I was about to get to it. I was about to get to it because one, what you were talking about, I was thinking specifically just this past Sunday, that ball to Scotty Miller. That ball hung in the air way too long, and had he just brought down the angle of that throw, I think he hits him in stride. That's 7 points right there.
Yep.
But what you talk about with the mechanics, man, the mechanics are definitely off. I feel like he's doing a lot of improvising stuff that's not really part of his game, because he's always been that cold, calculated Tom Brady who knows where he's going to throw before the play even happens. He reads the defense right. He's never really been that quarterback that when the play breaks down, he's going to improvise, extend the play, and throw it somewhere where somebody gets open.
Yeah, there's
what we're seeing, I think what I'm seeing anyways, is when he tries to do that, he's throwing off his back foot a lot. And if he is on the run, he's trying to throw on the run. And I don't want to say he's not good at it, because I mean, dude's been playing for forever. He needs a little respect, but it's not his forte.
It's not his wheelhouse. Yeah. So part of that is early in the year, he couldn't step into any throws because he was getting manhandled by whoever was lining up over Gedeke. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you develop habits if stuff like that continually happens, right? So you're right. A lot of backfooting and stuff like that. And then it became, the line, there are more issues with the line right now, right? So Nick Leverett has been a huge upgrade over Gedeke. I'd say he's playing around average, for an offensive guard in the NFL. And that's really all Brady needs. Hainsey's been a starter level, player. And Shaq Mason is still solid, although he'll have his, I don't want to say lapses, but he'll get beat every once in a while. But you're having issues at the tackle spots and at both of them, right now, because Wirfs is out. So you got Josh Wells and you've got Donovan Smith playing probably the worst football of his professional career. Okay. And
he's reverted back to Jameis era Donovan Smith.
So he's gotten better every year. I think he was better than a lot of people gave him credit for with Jameis, because Jameis wasn't where he was supposed to be all the time. And that can leave your offensive line out to dry a lot. But yeah, I mean, there's no getting around. Donovan Smith is playing terribly. I mean, the fact that Todd Bowles, that's a lot of it. The fact that Todd Bowles even admitted, hey, we've considered benching him, but we honestly think
we don't have anybody to put out there.
He is the best option as bad as he's playing right now. It tells you exactly what you need to know. And I think Donovan's admitted
it's pretty glaring that come draft time, we're going to be looking for a left tackle.
It's very possible. I mean, he doesn't have, they can get out of his contracts. It really comes down to whether they think they have a better option, right? You could see Donovan bounce back next year, right? He's shown that he can be a very good left tackle. Most of the issues that he's experiencing this year are technique. It's technique, which could be driven by mental lapses. Mm-hmm. The good news there is that could improve, right? That's fixable. It's not that he's physically unable to be what he was last year or in 2020.
I put out a tweet about him the other day during the game that I said, because I was just fed up with the penalties. This is 3 games in a row that he has cost us scoring opportunities.
Yep.
That in
3
the Cleveland
touchdowns that have been wiped in the Cleveland game. Yep.
He took away Rachaad White's big gain. That
New
probably
Orleans, he took away Chris Godwin.
Yep. Took away Chris Godwin's touchdown, and then he took away Mike's touchdown.
Yep.
And these are all like crucial junctures in the game. Like it's coming. In Mike's case, it was early in the game. In Chris and Rachaad White's case, it was late in the game where we needed to score.
Sure.
So I put out a tweet that I said, because he said, I'm dealing with something personal, I'm not going to get into it. All right, that's your personal business. But if it's that serious, take a seat, man, because you're not helping the team out there right now.
Well,
and if it's affecting you like that, we're better off without you.
Well, I was going to say, that's the scary thing, is you may not want to say that, because what is the alternative right now? Brandon Walton, who had a decent half a game against Dallas, I think it was. That's a very unproven asset, right? So, yes, he's actively hurting the team. Again,
he played all right against the Saints.
Was Walton in on that one?
Yeah, he was the left tackle for that game because Donovan messed up his arm.
But I thought Wells was back for it.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Right. Wells was playing left tackle.
Yeah. So he's actively hurting the team. Maybe there's a chance Brandon Walton's better. It's hard to say definitively. But kind of going back to the overall point, you've got all these issues on the offensive line. So Brady's trying to get the ball out fast, which means that he's not given the time to go to the deep options, right? Or to move through those reads or wait for those routes to get to the stem. Then you have, even on the ones where maybe they do get there, he's so worried about the pressure because this builds up, right? You have to expect I'm going to get pressured in 2.1 seconds, so I've got to get the ball out, right? You can't know ahead of time, these snaps I'm going to be clean, these snaps I'm not. You just have to start as expecting this is the amount of time I have to throw the ball. And then the third thing is, because he's getting so much pressure and he is very adept at knowing where pressure is coming from, so he's always been great at moving within the pocket, right? But now he's moving within the pocket and he's not getting an opportunity to reset his base, and that's where you're getting the off throws, right? So yes, he's got to own the off throws,
right?
But I think fans would do themselves a service to understand the context for where it is. If he had a much more consistent offensive line, more in line with last year or the year before, you would see cleaner mechanics, better play. Okay. If he had receivers who were getting open better, because Chris Godwin, God love him, he's still not back. He's not the Godwin of
I think he's at 80. He's at 80%.
I would say more like 65 to 70 and getting better each week. But he's still not there, right? So you've got all these things happening around him, and the part where most Bucs fans don't understand is they just expect Brady should be able to overcome. And maybe he's fallen out of that class of quarterback that can elevate everything going on around him and just succeed. Maybe he can only elevate one or two things going around, not 5 or 10 things going on around him. And that's where you see he's not the top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL. He's maybe a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and his PFF grade is right around that, and kind of makes sense. Where if things are going well, he's going to execute extremely well. It's going to look fantastic. But if you have all these things that are screwing up around him, he's not going to be able to overcome that. And especially in a system where they're basically just asking him to do that every third down. We're going to give you 15 third downs a game. And in order for this offense to look anything like a good offense, you're going to need to convert on 9 to 12 of them. Nobody's converting on 9 to 12 third downs a game. It's not happening.
I mean, I even put out the other day, I said, my beef is not with Tom Brady himself. It's more with the fans that refuse to admit when he is bad. And it's they're out there. And,
there are.
If you criticize them even a little bit, they come after you in droves, and you're so ungrateful. You're so ungrateful. He got you a ring and all that, and I'm like, bro, like I am forever grateful for that, man. Like we were dog shit before he came here. All right, like I'll admit it, we were terrible, and I appreciate everything that man did in that Super Bowl run. That is one of the best Super Bowl runs, all bias aside, that I have ever seen anybody go through. Maybe Joe Flacco was the only thing better.
From the second half of that Kansas City game on, they were electric, right? I'll leave you with this. I see the other side a lot more, right? And it could be just because of the point of view I'm coming from, which I try to be unbiased, and I try to say, look, this is what it is. Brady is not what he was a couple years ago. He is far from the number one problem. But I think it's easy for personalities out on Twitter to use that as a narrative. Brady sucks, and it's maybe the first thing they go to, right? And that to me is a little disingenuous, because there's a laundry list of things that are hindering him and the rest of the offense that would need to get fixed before you ever say the quarterback play is the issue, right? And again, San Francisco game, Brady played terrible. He'll admit it. Everybody will admit it. I admit it. But when you look at a lot of these losses this year, you can't say that Brady's play was even a top 5 reason why the team lost.
It's a lot of stalled drives.
Yep.
A lot of stalled drives that we're not running the ball well.
We're not running in great opportunities, right? If you want to average 3.2 yards per carry, which is I think right around what the Bucs are this year, okay, run in second and third or second and 3. Running 2nd and 3, 3.2 yards gets you a first down. That's a successful play. So running 2nd and 5, now you're setting up 3rd and 2.
And how much of it do you think is honestly play design? Because I'm seeing so many plays where like that downfield approach that that Bruce Arians had, that's long gone. We don't do that anymore. It seems like almost every throw we're throwing behind the line of scrimmage, we're throwing a screen pass, we're throwing maybe 5-6 yards.
There's a couple reasons for that, and I got to get off here in the next couple minutes. I apologize, but I'll try to address it. The Arians scheme is very option route based, so a lot of it's based on what the defense gives you. A lot of too high shells will prevent some of those deeper routes from developing, because like there's one concept I think is fairly easy to explain as cab, right? So Evans is lined up as the X receiver. If he sees a certain look, he takes it deep, right? It's a long go ball, right? But if they're playing off, or if the safety shaded over, it looks like a cover 2 look to his side, he's supposed to turn it into a comeback, at around 15 or 18 yards, I think it is. Chris Godwin from the Y, he would, based on what he sees in terms of middle of the field open or middle of the field closed, so single high safety or 2 high safety, that route turns into different things, right? If it's a Tampa 2 shell, he breaks it off as basically like a curl almost, right? Whereas other looks, he would take it as a deep cross or take it straight up the seam. So and this is kind of going back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier here on the show.
Seam pass still works with Godwin. I've seen it work plenty this season.
It can if it's the right look, right? But that kind of goes back to what I was saying is doesn't seem to be an evolution from this offense. And the Arians 2016 Cardinals playbook is literally available online for free. And you can go through that playbook and see a hell of a lot of what they're doing in 2022. That's 6 years ago.
You have to adapt, or you'll
adapt, evolve, or die.
Sink or swim.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
So there needs to be an evolution of this offense, and if they can do that, they have the pieces to be much more successful than they are. There's just been a almost zealot-like refusal to.
Right, and this is the last thing I promise. I'm gonna let you go. Is ever since Bruce went upstairs to do whatever the hell the job is that he's doing, I feel like they're not even talking to him anymore. Like, because there's so much like maddening, like the play calling, that I'm just like, do you not talk? Because I don't believe that whole story that came out that
the red pen.
Yeah. Well, not just with the Arians, but the one that came out this week about Brady, like changing up the plays the night before.
So he's not changing up the plays. He's doing the same thing he's always done, which is, and again, in an option route based system, you've got to do that. And you've heard the receivers talking about it for years. Literally, Kate Otten was talking about it in preseason this year. He's like, I've got to figure out what Tom wants, right? Because he's not changing the plays. What he's talking about is, hey, on this play, when you see this, I want you here. Okay. And it's maybe you break it off at 12 yards instead of 13, right, because the corner you're going up against has trouble sinking his hips, or I'm going to put it on your back shoulder here. Right. It's little things that they've always done. Arians has talked about it. Bowles addressed it, I think, earlier today or post game or whatnot. Those meetings have always happened. Right. I don't know what Mike Silver was trying to get at when he put it. And I'm not saying that
sensationalist journalism is.
I'm not saying it's not untrue, but it's the same thing that's always happened. And they're not necessarily things that Leftwich needs to know. It's just, this is kind of where I want your body placement on certain looks and plays and things like that. So it doesn't look good for the team. I don't see it getting much better going forward. It will probably be an embarrassing loss to the Bengals. And then they have an opportunity.
It's going to be a cold loss too. Are you going to be there?
No. I'm still in Atlanta. So,
okay. All right.
Next game,
it's going to be cold. It's supposed to be like 45 degrees. And I'm just like, I'm going to be bundled up. man.
Oh
Like
man,
this is gonna be
Floridians.
yeah, man. Like that's cold. That's cold for Tampa Bay.
Ah.
Like
Well,
so
yeah, for Tampa Bay, but I mean, dude, you were up in Tallahassee. 40s weren't out of the question in
no, they
Tallahassee.
weren't. But I haven't been in Tallahassee in like 7-8 years
All
where I
right,
was
fair
living
enough.
there. Like so, I've gotten back used to Orlando, Tampa weather,
Gotcha.
and it being we got a team from the north coming down here to play us, and this plays into their favor, even though they do have injuries too,
Yep,
and
especially on that defensive line, they're gonna have some issues there, and
so
could help the Bucs out a little bit.
it could, but it seems like if we're not going to get turnovers, it seems like we're not going to score points, and that's how it's just been all year. And you think of the Saints, the first Saints game when we got all those turnovers. Look how many points we turned that into, despite
Oh yeah.
it was a 3-3 game, right?
Yep.
That's how it's going to be. And so, I mean, the defense has been carrying us a little bit, and unfortunately they're going to have to. Because it's not going to get any better without Tristan Wirfs. He is that vital to our offensive line, and I want to be optimistic that we're going to steal one here or there. Like we're going to steal one from the Bengals.
I could see them going 3-1, but that's just to close it out. But that's just a function of the schedule and who they're going to play. You're going to play a Kylerless Arizona team on Christmas. You're going to play an Atlanta team starting Desmond Ritter for his third game. And then
thank God it won't be the first, right?
Right. And then you've got a Sam Darnold like Carolina coming into Tampa.
Sam will give you the ball. Sam will throw you the ball. So
yeah, as of right now, I see it. They're going to close out probably 3-1, which will make them 9-8, and they're going to win the division, and then they're going to have to host Dallas. And buddy, it's not the same Dallas team from week 1. It's not the same Bucs team from week 1, and it's an early bounce for me because I've got Dallas as I've got it here somewhere.
The weirdest thing about that matchup is that our team was more banged up when we played Dallas the first time, but yet we're worse, even healthier.
Were they more banged up? Yeah,
I mean,
Godwin.
We lose our left tackle early in the game, right? Like first half, I think we lost Donovan.
And late in the second quarter, yeah,
he was still playing pretty well. Godwin is his first game back from injury, so he's got the jitters. He leaves the game with a hamstring injury. Julio leaves the game with that knee injury. But
the defense, you got to consider you just talked about how the defense has to carry the defense has to carry the team, and the defense right now is extremely banged up. I mean, at one point in that San Francisco game, I was like, is Nolan Turner playing corner? Because we just ran out of him.
I saw it was D. Delaney.
Yeah, Zion
he was getting lit up.
Protocol. Dean had left the game. SMB was already out. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about that the team has to be carried by the defense, you have to consider the defensive injuries that they're going through right now. You got all of that. You've got
Mike Edwards. How close is Antoine? Like, we need him so badly out there. It's so apparent.
Said he's progressing. Him and Mike Edwards are progressing, but they're still behind SMB. So there's a good chance SMB is going to start or going to play on Sunday, and he's still unsure about Antoine. I know how you feel about SMB, and I know it kills you when I say he's having a better year this year. So
I mean, I'll take it over D. Delaney. But
D. Delaney knows where to be.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I was saying is I think I asked Bowles after the Saints game. I was a little surprised that Delaney didn't play like at all. It was Zion in the slot, and
I hope it's not too much to ask that SMB just give me one game where you play like you did in the playoffs. Just one game.
There you go. Hey, Salty, I gotta go, man.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming through, man. And this was fun. This was educational. Maybe I'm gonna backpedal a little bit on my Brady hate. Not for the Brady's the Brady stands that be coming at me, because some of what I am saying is valid. When he does play bad, I will call him out for it. I will do it for any player on the team except Mike Evans. I'm just kidding. Mike has not played up to par, but I still think that is due to injury more so than
last couple games. He's been pretty solid. Last couple games, the play is definitely elevated over, say, like Baltimore. So you see him improving, and then
we're using him totally wrong too. Like,
I mean, he's a traditional X, and they use him as a traditional X. He's not a Y. He's not a Z. He's not a slot guy.
It's
he's
too
an
many.
X receiver.
It's too many. Downfield throws. It's just like you're tiring him out by constantly making him run 20, 30 yards down the field.
Have you checked out Next Gen Stats?
No, I haven't.
Take a look. They've got route charts. Take a look at his route charts this year versus years past. It's not much different.
It's not? Okay.
It's not.
Well, with the ankle and the ribs, that's why I've been alluding to. I don't think he's healthy.
Shorter routes mean you're putting him in more harm's way. Robbing safeties coming down and rocking him. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, right, man. Yeah, and he's never been a yak guy, so
yeah. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. I appreciate it. We'll do this again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, man. See ya.